Hi guys, what's going on? Finally here on a Monday, once again with a review. This time it's The Sword of Destiny by Andrzej Sapkowski. I've been informed in the comments of my previous video that is in fact how you pronounce it, Andrzej Sapkowski, and that's what we're going with from now on. So, The Sword of Destiny is the second book in the Witcher saga. It's the second short story collection. It's a book that I've read before, and a book that I'm in as a result of that I'm rereading. I have actually docked a star off of the book score on the reread. Controversially so. It's gone from 5 to 4 stars. Still an excellent book, but we're going to talk about why. We're going to talk the goods and the bads. Let's start with the good. The good things, first of all, character development in this book is absolutely phenomenal. Sapkowski really has hit a stride with this short story collection, getting rid of a lot of the weaknesses that I think he had in the first book as the Last Wish. Geralt's character now is much more consistent. He's more clarified in sort of his beliefs and his ideologies, and as a result of that, we get to have a bit more fun testing those beliefs and ideas. So Geralt is now a character that is he's very similar to as he is in The Last Wish. He doesn't develop like tremendously from an outward perspective as the book goes on, but internally you really get this sense of growth and the complexity of his character. I've done a whole character study on Geralt, so I'm not going to go into huge detail here, but needless to say, it just goes on throughout the series now in a really good direction. And one thing that I'm really happy about is one short story in here in particular called A Little Sacrifice. Really develops Dandelion's character in just a fantastic way, and really has actually changed Dandelion into one of my favourite characters in the whole saga. And I think that story in particular elevates him from simple comic relief, which he still does play a part in doing throughout the series, but it changes him from just being comic relief to being this real humanizing, balancing element for the story, which is really fantastic. One character that is not particularly well developed here, and is a character that I'm not all that fond of, unfortunately, is Yennefer, who is obviously Geralt's main love interest throughout the series. I think she's a lot of people seem to really like Yennefer. I think she's really complicated as a character, and I can see where they're coming from, but there's a lot of things that Yennefer does that I just find very loathsome. And I find it difficult to root for her, which makes it difficult when we're expected to root for her. I don't mind when you can see her as a bad person, whatever, but when you're expected to then see her as a good person, it makes it more difficult for me, personally. The writing style is something else that has really sort of come into its own in this book. I think there are particular passages in here that are indicative of Sapkowski's real style developing. There's a lot less choppiness in the narrative that there was in The Last Wish. And these stories really sort of flow together much more seamlessly, and I think there's a really good elaboration of the ideas and themes that come through in the writing style here. Maybe that's because, I don't know, because like this book was, in English it was published 5th in the series rather than 2nd, so I don't know if it's just that the translator got better at translating that style, or if Sapkowski just like really developed between book 1 and book 2. It's hard to say until I guess I've read the 3rd one again, which I'm going to be doing soon. I've already started it, so look forward to that eventually. So yeah, there's a greater consistency sort of in between the stories and with the characters. There's a stronger sense of world building in this, because we get to revisit some characters that we saw in the first book. We get to revisit some of the locations, and I think the stories are on average longer than they were in The Last Wish. So that does give us a little bit more time in these places and with these characters to really sort of build a sense of the world. I think a lot of the description is a lot more solid. Sort of, you get a better idea of the sort of things Geralt can do and what his powers are and things. And you do get a better sense of how the magic works. The magic system has always been something in the Witcher series that is a bit loose, because when it comes to like sorcerers and sorceresses, their magic is very loosely defined. They don't really have any limitations other than it making them sort of physically drained to do a lot of it. But apart from that, they can sort of really do more or less anything. There's also a better sense of the tonality with the book. There's a lot less sort of monster of the week stuff going on, and more of a sense of exploration of the characters, which is a lot more what the series is about than this sort of man fighting monster sort of thing. So I think in comparison to the rest of the series, this book has a better tonal consistency, and sort of internally it's more consistent as well. There is obviously some bad elements. One thing that I do need to point out is that Sapkowski is he makes some interesting decisions when it comes to his female characters, and the way he discusses them. Lots of talk about ample bosoms and perfect breasts when it doesn't need to be talked about. Weird scenes where Yennefer is sexually harassed and abused for no real reason. Lots of weird things, basically. There is a little undercurrent of misogyny in there. I think it's could become accepted of fantasy writers, especially of this time, that is a series from the 90s, that is a thing that exists in them. It doesn't make it really good that it happens a lot. In fact, it's something obviously that we've now moved away from. So that can be a little bit jarring. There was a few times where I was like scratching my head and going, didn't really need to go there, but it didn't ruin anything over much. There is this is the one thing that I did dock the star for. There's actually quite a lot of filler in the book. Two of the stories in particular, whilst good stories on their own and fun to read individually, sort of really dragged down the pace of the book as a whole. I'm thinking particularly of Eternal Fire, which is just a comic relief side story that doesn't really have any meaningful things happen in it. And the first short story as well is kind of filler-ish. I hesitate to call it massive filler because there is some good character stuff in there, but it, like, the adventure as a whole is sort of like so that's it, basically. That's my review of The Sword of Destiny. Definitely still enjoyed it. 4-star read, fantastic book, excellent characters. It's a great next step in the series, but it didn't grab me quite as much as the first time I read it, just because of some of those pacing issues and some of those moments where I was a bit like, maybe we can move away from doing this sort of stuff. And I think as the series goes on, it does sort of overcome those sort of hurdles. So look forward to Wednesday, when I'll be doing a deeper discussion of all the different points from each individual story. And yeah, look forward to the next review of The Blood of Elves, which is book 3 in the Witcher saga. And I will see you then. Goodbye.